My name is James Williams Jr. Welcome to Kung Fu Havoc #2. First, I'd like to take a good shout out and thank my cousin Bruce Jr. for sending me back my dog tags. I thank you very much for that. I've been having a really shitty last 2 weeks without them. I guess you could say they're like my good luck charms. So I said I was going to do a video about the 6 books or the 5 books that I picked up in the basement from my comic book shelf. So specifically, we're not going to worry about Excalibur. That's 1. We're really not going to worry about the X-Men Spider-Man team up. That's 2. We're going to worry a little bit about the Avengers, so it's 5 books. No, it's 6 books, because I have 4 in my hand. I'm specifically going to tune in on the what ifs. Alright? So in case you guys don't know, what if doesn't really affect the Marvel Universe as much as everybody thinks it does, or as much as everybody would hope that it would. What if is basically when Marvel takes certain characters that we all know and love and put them under the horrific charge of one man. That's right. We know him as the Watcher. Now that's one of the Watchers. That's not what the Watcher normally looks like, and he's not like the main Watcher, but they all kind of look the same, and they're all big, bald-headed people. That's me putting it politely, and for anybody who's bald that I've offended, take that shit up with Marvel. I didn't make up the characters, I just read the comics, alright? So, in my what-ifs, and the ones I've chosen, because they were the first ones I grabbed the what if about Spider-Man, what if other people had got bit by the radioactive spider, and that was Flash Thompson, J. Jonah Jameson's son, John Jameson, and Betty Bryant. So, each one of them basically relived Spider-Man's life, except for, like, they had different outcomes. Flash Thompson died. J. Jonah Jameson's son, John Jameson, was picked out to be like the greatest Spider-Man ever in the Daily Planet's eyes. He was like the mega hero or whatever. He could do no wrong because it wasn't Peter Parker. And then Betty Bryant, her and Peter was together in a relationship, and Peter's parents were the people who raised him, rather. I can't really say they were his parents, Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Uncle Ben was still killed. Now, Flash Thompson did the wrestling thing, John Jameson did the wrestling thing, and then with the death of Uncle Ben, that was all Betty Bryant. So she managed to wind up destroying the costume or throwing it in the trash can, and that pretty much is the gist of that. But if you are a What If fan, you know, it gives you, like, different perspectives. So when you go through the Marvel Universe, you know, you're like, well, what if this person was Spider-Man instead of Peter Parker? How would the world be different? Greatly. Because apparently in Marvel, what you're destined to be, eventually you will be. Alright, so this is one of my good ones that I liked. It was the Submariner and the Fantastic Four. So basically what happened with Sue Richards, or Susan Storm, who became Susan McKenzie. And Franklin would be Submariner's son and Sue Richards' son instead of Sue Richards and Reed Richards' son. And basically that became like a family squabble and a jealousy thing. And, you know, honestly, I prefer Sue Richards to be with Reed Richards. I don't like cheaters or any of that stuff. But in this, they were never together to begin with. But it gives you perspective on how different her life would be if she married the Submariner instead of marrying Reed Richards. So, let's go to another one that I found quite fully delicious. And it's going to be about the almighty Thor. And what if his Earth girlfriend, Jane Foster, had found Mjolnir instead of him? Well, the spoiler alert is that eventually he does become Thor again. And she gives up the hammer willingly. But before all that, there's like this big clusterfuck of these aliens attacking them and shit. And her and Donald Blake get separated. And she finds the cave with the hammer, which is a stick at the time. And she breaks open a rock or whatever. And the stick becomes the hammer. And she becomes Thor. Or Thordis, as she is called. So, why do I like it? Because it gives you a perspective on what would happen. But that's not the only woman that What If has turned into Thor. My favorite one that they did that with was Rogue. I'll get to that in a second. The last book I want to get onto, I really wasn't this fond of What If the Avengers had became pawns of Korak. I'm probably not saying it right, because you know Marvel has a lot of names that you just can't fucking pronounce. I'm sorry, Marvel, I love you to death, but you do have some super villain names that I just can't fucking pronounce. Alright? So, we're not even going to touch that because I honestly didn't really like it. I read it, couldn't stand it. It's okay. It also came back out way back in 1982 when I was just X-Men and Spider-Man and G.I. Joe and Transformers, because those were like the main 5 titles that I read. X-Men, anything X-Men, I'm just counting it all as X-Men. You know, I read New Mutants, I read X-Men, I read X-Factor. X-Force didn't come along until the 90s. I also read Excalibur. So all of those are only going to count as one right now, so that I don't confuse myself or everyone else, because anything with the X-Men in it, I read it. Even crossovers. Had to spend some money to get some crossovers. And anything Spider-Man, I read. And then Marvel has sole control over G.I. Joe and Transformers. So for those who don't know, yes, there are crossover books with G.I. Joe and Transformers. And yes, I have some. I don't know where they are, but I have some. And I read them. And we're going to get back on the last what if that I want to touch that I don't have in this item, but it was my favorite of most of the what ifs. This is probably one of my hands down favorites because I'm still hunting for what if Cable destroyed the X-Men. I'm still hunting for all of those. But the one what if that I will never forget, and I know I have it downstairs somewhere, I just not have time to go look for it right now. And if I ever find it, I promise I will do a complete tutorial about it. But my favorite what if is when Rogue became Thor. Now I'm gonna break that down right now. I don't even have to go flashing back. All I have to do is just show you guys the comic cover, and I don't have that with me right now, but it is downstairs in my box of comics. I swear on my life, unless somebody stole it while I was in the military, it's there. So basically what happens in that book, Rogue and Thor are going at it. Like, no, not fucking. They're going at it, fighting all over Manhattan. And I think Rogue's like still a member of the Freedom Force, which is secretly bad guys who abduct mutants and turn them into bad guys. And not like X Factor, who abducts mutants and give them new lives in places where no one knows who they are. Basically like the Witness Protection Program. Moving on. So Thor and Rogue are going at it, battling out. And Thor's having this problem because this woman is like draining his powers, and the more that they make contact, the stronger the Rogue is getting. So in the end, they both like he's coming down with a hammer, and she clutches his arms or she clutches his hands. One way or the other, she clutches him, and she absorbs him completely out of existence. It's like she's grabbing him, and then there's like this big clusterfuck of like wind and all kinds of debris and shit flying all around in the city or whatever. And next damn thing you know, Thor is gone. Now I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. He either evaporated or his body dropped and it was lifeless, but she gained every ounce of Thor. All of his strength, all of his memories, you name it, she got it. And her hair, I think it went from like white to blonde and brown instead of like white, but it was like one whole stripe like it used to be. So by the middle of the comic, you know, Odin comes down. And her and Odin have some kind of discussion. And she's fighting for all the right reasons. And she's not fighting Odin, but she's fighting all the bad guys and everything. And every time that there's trouble, she continues to fight the bad guys. So by the end of the comic, her and Odin are talking. And he goes, you know, how you got this power of my son is not very well appreciated. I have lost a son, but I have gained a powerful new daughter. And so by the end, it's like a father-daughter relationship between them. And it's pretty good because now that she's a like god at the end, there's like nothing that anybody can really do to fuck with Rogue, you know. Plus, she's also now the daughter of Odin. And I think that storyline probably could have went like 2 or 3 more comics, but most what ifs rarely have 2 and 3 parts unless it's all in the same book. But this one was a one-parter only, and it was pretty damn good. Now, the what if Cable killed the X-Men, that's a 3-parter, and I have 2 of them. I can't remember which 2 I have, but I have 2 of them, and they're pretty good. So if you really like Marvel Comics, I mean, the thing that gets you hooked on Marvel is just the writing itself and the storyline. So I will tell you honestly, I don't think Marvel still does Strange Tales, but they were great. And they brought back a whole bunch of old featured comic characters from the 70s and the 60s and the Golden Age and all this other stuff. And the what ifs, you know, so if I ever go back to reading comics again, you know, the real kind, not the digital shit, the real kind, like the shit you can actually hold in your hand, I would only really pick up what if and Strange Tales now because after Onslaught, as much as I love the X-Men, I swear I would never pick up another X-Men book just because of the direction they took my favorite characters in and who they killed out, who they brought back, and everything. And it floored me so badly that I just really anything after 2008, I'm not ever picking up. So wherever the X-Men are now, Godspeed. When they made Cyclops marry the White Queen, I was completely done. That did it for me because I was so hoping that him and Jean Grey would get married because Jean Grey is Rachel's mom and Madeline is Cable's mom, and everything just went fuck you, James. And so in that, I kind of just stopped reading. And yeah, I'm not mad they made Nick Fury black. No, I mean that's cool. They needed more diversity. They made it him black, and they made more black guys have more politically better jobs. Except for Luke Cage, who's still a private investigator and the hero for hire with his wife. Um, damn it, I can't think of her name, but she has a show on Netflix. Anyway, the whole principle of the thing is that, you know, I love What If. And What If is like, if I wasn't able to find an X-Men comic or a Spider-Man comic in the store, I could always find a What If, and it would hold me over until like the next issue of the X-Men. Because What If is one of those books that even when you finish reading it, you have to go back and reread it to make sure you got everything right so that the story is wound up right in your head. All hail the Watcher. And I'm pretty sure that when the Doctor Strange movie comes out, they're probably going to lead up to the Watcher. Because he hasn't made any cameos in any other Marvel movies, specifically the ones from Marvel with Phase 1 and 2 and all that. And I'm thinking, why have they not introduced the world to the Watcher? Since they're going to bring Doctor Strange in and they've introduced the world to Thanos. So, as a person who's a more favorite to Marvel than DC, you know, by the way, in a sad note to that, I did like Batman versus Superman. Of course, I found out it was more based on the cartoon and not the actual comic book. So, okay, moving back over to Marvel now. When you read Marvel comics, you know, they're great writers. They're great writers in DC too. Don't get that twisted. You know, I'm not in it to compliment or promote anybody for their writing or whatever, because Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld were my favorites, and Jim Lee's DC. I have no idea where Todd McFarlane is or Rob Liefeld, and I forgot the other guy. I liked him too, but anyway, no, the whole thing is when you read a What If, it takes you so beyond the 616 storyline or the 512 or the whatever the hell storyline, the 415 or the 466, whatever one the other Blink came from, that storyline, and the one where Meryl was a chick and not a dude, where she could pull the bones out of her knees. When it came to the cartoon of X-Men Evolution, Meryl became a dude, and he could pull the bones out of his arms and everything. I didn't like that. I liked it better when Meryl was a chick, because it's not something that you see a chick being able to do every day. Like, boom, slam a bone right out of your knee and start cutting people up. You know, I liked female Meryl. I wasn't too sure of male Meryl. Plus, they changed him up a bit. He was Ethan something or another. And if you watch the X-Men Evolution cartoon, you know exactly who the fuck I'm talking about. And I didn't like that. I will say I did like Wolverine and X-Men. I just didn't like where it was going before they ended it. And I was like, really? You guys are like really fucking up. But I don't work for them. And just because I like one storyline and the way it's going doesn't mean everyone's going to agree with it. So, like I said, I stopped reading comics. Not as a way of boycotting Marvel. Don't get me wrong. I love Marvel comics. But everything after 2008, I stopped reading. I stopped reading because my feelings were hurt. You know, and your feelings are going to get hurt when you invest yourself into these things. And it's just like 2008, they switched to Guardians of the Galaxy. Totally fucking floored me. So I was like, well, I had been behind, like 2 years behind the Guardians of the Galaxy, so I didn't even know this shit was coming. And when it came, it was like, who the fuck are these people? Yeah, it was like a slap in the face and a kick in the nuts at the same time. So in that, it was pretty much decided they screwed up the Guardians of the Galaxy, they screwed up my X-Men, they screwed up my Spider-Man, and I'm fucking done reading comic books. So I live in the past comic books. So anything from 2008 back, I can give you. I'm down. I just have to go find it. But I'm back with that. Anything from 2008 to the present day, I have no clue what's going on in the X-Men universe. And at this point, I really don't care, because after the X-Men in the Age of Apocalypse or whatever, where they all became a commodity, where there were less mutants and all the mutants were basically banned from anywhere on Earth except for the Xavier School of the Gifted. I pretty much decided right then and there will be no more reading of the comics for me. They started fucking up shit when they made Cannonball leave X-Force. They made Tabitha start dating Sunspot. Excuse me. You might not know her by that name. She's one of the only X-Men that's actually out of one of the Virginia states. Her name was Tabitha Smith. She would later become Boom Boom, Boomer, and then Meltdown. I liked her name better as Boomer, but you know, hey, it's the same thing what they did with Richter, and they got rid of him in Genosha, and I'm like, and the same thing with Renee. They both joined X Factor, led by Havoc, and then it was done. And then I don't know who the hell runs X Factor. After 2008, I didn't read any more X titles. Period. Yeah, well, let's not even give it a 2008. I would say after the Onslaught fiasco, where he went through every comic book, just wiping out every fucking body, I pretty much put my comics down and closed my wallet to them forever. You know, and I'm not decisively saying that that was a good choice, but it was my choice to make due to the fact that I didn't like where they were going with the characters. Now, every year, or every 2 to 5 years, Marvel has, I guess, a tradition of like totally fucking flopping the story. Because back in, I want to say 88, 89, when they decided to bring Xavier back, it wasn't too long after Psylocke became Asian. Jubilee and all the X-Men came back from Australia. And Dazzler had to go with Longshot back to his world to do something to change something up. And then that all got fixed. And then they kind of faded away and she never came back home. And next thing you know, Shatterstars and the episode 100 of the New Mutants, which was the final comic for New Mutants. And then it came X-Force. Then they had the writers thing and all that shit went to hell. And that's, when the writer stuff started happening, it was about the time for me to stop reading because, you know, it started having all these issues. Because then, you know, at first, the X-Men were not the X-Men, they were the Uncanny X-Men. And those were the only X-Men books until like the 90s when they decided, okay, let's give the X-Men 2 more titles. Now they had the X-Men Classics, which I also bought. But they had the Uncanny X-Men, and then they came out with the X-Men. They had 4 covers. Because they had Cyclops and somebody on one, Storm and somebody on the other, Colossus and somebody on the other, and Magneto or somebody on the other. And all 4 of the comics, if you bought them, you put them together, and you had this like amazing mega-ass poster. Okay, I'm not about to destroy my comic books to get that one amazing extra-ass poster. So, you know, I bought the comics. I shouldn't have bought them because it was actually, episode 1 was the first comic. So each one that was up with the poster, you wasted like $3 because the poster was the cover. And you know you can't take the cover off the comic. It fucking devalues the damn thing. So the only way you could do it is to buy 2 of each. I'm poor, people. That shit won't gonna happen. But what I did do was I put all the covers together on my bed. You know, open up the cover. You know, I opened the comic like this and put them all side by side and looked at the poster. And then when they had the one with the X-Men, they went into space to get Xavier back, and the Skrulls were taking over the Shi'ar Empire because Xavier was actually a Skrull, and Lilandra wasn't aware of it, although it was probably way in that she didn't realize that the love of her life was chained into a room in the back, and Jubilee discovered it, so she got kidnapped. Then Gambit discovered it, and Psylocke discovered it, and the only one they couldn't hold was Wolverine. And by the time Wolverine discovered, he had just had sex with some chick with butterfly wings, and he started like he's the only one who can decipher the scent of people. So you better not break free. Today is not the day to do that. I'm sorry, looking at the dog. The whole thing, you know, the Wolverine has the ability to smell people's scent as well as heal. So that's how the whole Super Skrull invasion thing at the Shi'ar Empire shit just went to hell in a handbasket. Because once he got up there and he started cutting people up, it was a whole different ball game. And when he started doing that, Gladiator and all of them attacked Wolverine and said, "How dare you attack the Shi'ar Empire?" And it's like, they might be Shi'ar, but when does the Shi'ar smell like Super Skrull? He's like, what? So then Super Skrull's cover was blown, and him and Gladiator got to fighting, and then Wolverine got free, and they started fucking up everybody who wasn't a Skrull, or who was a Skrull rather. And then the Skrulls had to break the fuck out because they were no match for the Shi'ar Empire. About that time, Xavier and all the other X-Men come out of the chamber butt-ass naked, and that cover for that magazine, it was like quadruple fold. So you'd have an outside and an inside, because the front cover was folded inside as well as on the outside, and then the back of the comic had the a cover, and it had another front cover. So when you stretch it out, it was about as wide, well, as long as this thing here, but it had all the X-Men fighting scrolls. Even Banshee and stuff was on it. I have no idea what I did with that, but I did have that. So I bought 2 of those and took the cover off of that one. But the first X-Men title, that wasn't going to happen. But also during that whole saga, they were releasing X-Men 2 copies a month. So the first 2 weeks of like June, you get Uncanny X-Men and X-Men, and then at the end of the second 2 weeks of June, you get Uncanny X-Men and X-Men. So they was doing 2 covers or two comics a month at that time. And at that time, the comics were probably maybe $1.50. So I'd stock up. I was working, so I'd stock up. I'd get the covers, I'd get the comics, and I was just going to town on these things. And about that time, the cartoon for Fox came out. The original X-Men cartoon is not that cartoon, but the first one to air after that '60s only the background move cartoon was called Proud of the X-Men, and it never got off the ground as a series, and it probably would have worked because it had Dazzler in it. It didn't have anybody but Dazzler and Storm and Kitty, and it had Nightcrawler, Colossus, and Wolverine. But and it had Cyclops. It didn't really go into deep detail of all the other X-Men. And as an X-Men fan, I'm gonna say it because no one else has the balls to say it. If you're going to make the movie, I would prefer you make it the way Stan Lee and them wrote it in the first place. You're gonna make the movie, go by the comic. Get the original 5 guys in there and just start from there. But that didn't work out, and I don't work for them, unfortunately. So that's that. I'm gonna go to another video about this stuff. So please stay tuned. I'm James Williams Jr. This is Comfy Habit number 2. What if exposed?